0 to 60 car videos here. We have a 2009 Ford Taurus. I was just changing the oil on this car and noticed that the serpentine belt was split down the middle. So this is going to be an instruction video on how to get that changed. It's relatively simple on this car. We try to get a light down here so I can show you what we're working with. We have got it only goes around the alternator, which you can see on the top, and then the compressor for the air conditioning, which you can see at the very bottom. And then over to the side, it has the crank. The crank also has a power steering belt attached to it. And that power steering goes way back in the back. You probably won't be able to even see it on video. But it is out of the way, and I checked it, and it does not need to be changed. The only one that needs to be changed is this main accessory serpentine right here. The main thing is you have to find the tensioner, which again, light is kind of difficult here since we have a large V6 kind of crammed in the front of this car. So I'll try to do the best I can. But right here, we have the belt tensioner. And then there's a hole in the middle, and it takes a 3/8 inch either breaker bar, which is what I'm going to use, or you can even just put a 3/8 inch ratchet on there if you don't have a breaker bar. And you can put even like a pipe on it, kind of like a cheater bar, if you will, to get some leverage. Now, they do sell a particular belt tool. All it is a flat bar to give you some more room to get in with a 3/8 inch adapter on the end of it. Now, here's my 3/8 inch breaker bar. That special tool that they sell, it's literally just this squared end welded onto a flat bar. So if you don't have one of those, it's really pointless to spend the money if you've already got a socket, wrench, and that'll do it if you're strong enough, or you can just get a pipe to get you some more leverage. So the main thing to keep in mind, which of course you can find diagrams online, of course, but it's always good to even just draw a picture with how many circles you see there. So the circle for the crank, circle for the compressor, circle for the alternator, and the tensioner. And then just draw the line as to the direction that the belt goes. This one is relatively simple. It just has the crank and the compressor and the alternator, and then the power steering, or I'm sorry, not the power steering, but the tensioner. So it's pretty straightforward. There are a lot more complicated ones out there. Now you can see here that all I've simply done is place the breaker bar into the hole. And if you just put some pressure on it to the right, I can get around that. Okay, so if you just put some pressure on it, you see how it just moves, and then that belt is now free. And you can just grab down there with the other hand and pull it straight off. I also put my 3/8 inch socket wrench on here. And in this particular car is a better application due to the fact that the breaker bar didn't really get much movement on it. It would only move, maybe a couple inches. And I can try to turn the flash on. That's a little bit better. So you can see that now I have the socket wrench on there. It's a little bit more adjustable because you can just loosen it to where you can get the most leverage. And you can see I can completely rotate the tensioner all the way till it's bottomed out now, whenever I have a little bit more leverage on it like that. So to each their own. If you want to buy that special tool, you can, but I don't think it's necessary. Now, I'm just simply reaching my hand down here. Now you can see I've got the belt off. Now, all you have to do is pull it off of the compressor, and the only thing it's left holding it down now. If I can try to... Putting the light down here at the bottom might be a little bit better. I apologize for the circumstances, but that's kind of Ford's fault. Okay. Now, it's off the crank, I can tell. The only thing that's holding it in is the tensioner. And so you just kind of have to wiggle it around. A lot of this, there's really just not an art to it. It's just simply rolling it around until you get it out. All right. Now, like I said, I was just changing the oil on this car, and when I was underneath it, I saw it was split. So I'll do a little bit of an inspection here. Parts of it look fine. And then there's parts where it's kind of missing little chunks. But I'll try to locate what was giving me the most concern. This is my wife's daily driver, so there it is. That is not good when you commute 70 plus miles a day. That could put you stranded in a cold winter. Now, the car had also been doing a little bit of ticking around the Serpentine area, and I couldn't put my finger on it, but I would have to assume this is what it is, because the car runs and drives fine. Oil's clean, so I don't think it's an actual internal tick. It sounded more like a Serpentine drive tick. I thought, well, I just changed that alternator. Maybe it's crooked or something, but this is what did it right here. So then you just simply get your new one. I definitely would hold it up to this one and make sure that it's the right size before you start really getting into it, because that might be a little frustrating having to go back to the parts store. So it appears to be, try to zoom out a little bit here, it appears to be the right size. And of course the tensioner should make up for a little bit of slack, but looks like the parts store gave me the right one. Alright, so the best way to approach this now is to get it around that crank first, because it's the lowermost part. Once you get it around the crank, the next obstacle is the tensioner, and that is really hard to see from here. But it has a circular wheel on it, pulley, just like the other accessories, and you've got to get that around that. That's probably the trickiest part. Once you get over here to the compressor and the alternator, you can put it around the compressor, and then the last but not least, it'll get it all the way up to the alternator, and it won't go over it. Get it tight as you can, and then with your other hand, pull on the tensioner, the setup you have to loosen up the tensioner, and slide it over the alternator. I found that to be the best way, especially with this particular car. So I'm going to get into position for that. Okay, so here we are under the Taurus, to kind of show you how it goes over this crank. So there's the crank right there, and then right where you see the ribs in the belt here, right here. This is where that tensioner looks like from the bottom with the belt over it. And it's just so close quarters, I can't really show you. So I'm moving the belt right now on that tensioner. The back side of the belt goes there. And then you can see that the V's, or the ribbed part, goes right there. So if you can manage to get under here and get it around that crank right there. And then here's the compressor right in front of us. And then just kind of sitting on underneath the tensioner, then you can just simply pull up the slack to where it's ready to go over the alternator, and that's where you'll loosen up the tensioner again to slide it over. But this is the hardest part. I was having such a hard time getting it from the top around the crank that I jacked it up, put a jack stand under it, and got underneath it to get under here. Okay, so we're just about ready here. We are ready here. We have, you can see right here, I have the belt sticking up from, it's around the compressor at the bottom. It's underneath the tensioner right there. And it's ready to go over the alternator. Now, I'm gonna try to do this to where you can see as best as possible. But I'm going to release all the tension out of there. All right, so the first attempt was a little bit of a failure. I need to get a little bit more leverage on this. It needs to really be all the way over. All right. So, hopefully you could see a little bit of that. I know my arm was pretty much filling this whole little space that they give you here. But it looks like we have gotten it. And the ultimate test is going to be to crank it and see what happens. But everything looks to be sitting okay. I like to check, you know, these ribs on the alternator here. Make sure they're all right. And you know what? While we got the car in the air, we might as well get underneath here. Check these. It's on the crank. And if you can even, it's so hard to see anything under here. There we go. And it looks like it's sitting on the tensioner pretty good, so I'd say we're good to go. But we'll do the ultimate test here. All right, so we have got it running. And not only is it on there correctly, and we don't have any issues with that, but that ticking noise that I had mentioned at the beginning of the video has completely vanished. So that had to have been that noise that I was hearing. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment. I try to get back to you as soon as I can. And again, I apologize for not being able to see a whole lot as much as I would like in this video, just simply due to the fact that Ford didn't give us a whole lot of room on this. Now, this application should be pretty similar to most Serpentine belt systems. You just kind of have to really pay attention to the order in which everything goes back on. So even if you're just taking a picture, or like I said at the beginning of the video, drawing a picture, it's very helpful. Thanks for watching, and have a great night.